Hey guys, welcome back to Little Boy Customs. Today is part 2 of cutting down the bed. If you haven't watched the last episode, which was how I marked everything out and came up with my numbers, everybody else cut 16 here, roughly. That if you looked at the difference between a long bed and a short bed, 16 inches here, 4 inches here difference. I'm cutting the front of mine a little over 17 inches on the front. And I had some questions of why I came up with that and how I came up with that. Rewatched the last episode, but the skinny of it is if I was putting this bed and building this entire truck on an F100 short bed frame, then yes, I would have cut 16 inches here. But I'm not. I'm building the entire truck on a 1998 Grand Marquis frame. Therefore, the frame is completely different. If I was doing apples to apples, yeah, 16 here, 4 there. But I'm not. This is apples and oranges. Grand Marquis frame is totally different than the F100 frame as far as where the cab mounts and all that. Everybody's build is a little bit different because nobody ever puts the cab in the exact same spot. So that's why you had to measure it out to get the right dimension that you wanted here in order to get your wheel in the middle of that opening there. So 16 inches here. Haven't decided if I'm cutting the back half yet. If you think I ought to change the back half and cut it down also, leave a comment below. If you think, leave it alone, it'll be a total custom build. It already is, but it'll be different from everybody else's. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think I ought to do. You think I ought to cut the back half or leave it alone? But as for today's episode, we're going to cut all of that out right there. I've even marked the inside of the bed. And I don't know if you can see. Yep, there's a line right there. And then we even have this side marked out. So there's different ways that you can cut this section out right here. We can use a plasma cutter. We can use a sawzall. But the way I'm going to do it is by using a cutoff wheel. It's going to take me a little bit longer in order to use a cutoff wheel and cut all that out. But the time I spend in cutting this out will save me when I get ready to weld it back together. And what I mean by that is if you use a plasma cutter and you cut all this out, it's going to leave a little jagged edge. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not great with freehanding straight lines with a plasma cutter. I do it about as well as I do with a Sharpie. So I could also use a sawzall there, and it would give me the good crisp lines and that kind of stuff. I'm just low on sawzall blades, so that's why I'm not using a sawzall. I've decided to use the cutoff wheel. We'll probably burn through quite a bit of the cutoff wheels because it's just a little 4-inch cutoff wheel. So you can get these, and this one's going to be air, but you can also get them in electric down at Harbor Freight, whatever. If you don't have an air compressor. But that's what I'm going to do. 4-inch wheels. This one's already slightly used, but what we'll do is we'll use it and cut on the inside of the tape there. Some of them are on the inside, some of them are on the outside. So anyway, let's get started. All right, guys, we got all of that cut out, both sides. I used the cutoff wheel in order to cut here. Really nice straight lines. That's going to make it nice whenever we get ready to re-weld. Now, on the inside here, right down through here, I used a plasma cutter. On that side over there, that was the first side that we cut. And I used the plasma cutter and I cut right in this corner right here, as close to this wall as I could. And when I did that, the top piece and the bottom piece came apart. So on the second one, there's a little step right here, and I used plasma cutter and just went down that step in order to take the two apart. Now you may be asking yourself, why would I have done that, and why didn't I just go ahead and cut straight across and leave this all one big piece? Well, the reason why is because I wanted to see how these two married up. I knew this panel and this panel were two separate panels, but I couldn't figure out where one ended over the other one. This panel here goes all the way down, and it goes down and into the bed, and it makes that whole piece. This other piece here comes up and goes all the way and then stops right there. So whenever I cut the first one, these two pieces came apart. Whenever I cut the second one, it didn't come apart. This one here is the second one. And as you can see better right there maybe, you can see down through there that there is actually a lip, and that's where the two meet up at and weld together. The first one I cut apart is right there, and as you can see, they are two separate pieces. Now you may be asking yourself, why did I do that? Well, the bed floor of my truck is going to be a little different than what most everybody else makes. Everybody else has to get, well, all of us that are using the Crown Vic or the Grand Marquis has to get over the top of this hump right here. So almost everybody that I have ever seen notches the bed out between this wheel well and that wheel well over there. They just cut this center section out right here. You have a compartment here, and then you have a huge hump that they've built, and then you have another compartment back here. And while that may be okay for most everybody else, it's not okay for me. I don't think it's a very clean or finished look. And so the reason why we were cutting in this area here was to find out how all this is put together, because we're going to raise the entire floor of the bed up in order to keep it flat. It just won't be as deep. Now, rough estimate measurement, which means that I'm just guessing here, take a tape measure and just kind of measure off the top of this wheel and just kind of measuring to the top and just kind of looking, not really getting accurate measurements, but that hump is about 7 inches tall off the top of that wheel right there. With that being said, I know that the minimum I'm going to go up is 7 inches. Originally what I was going to do was I was going to cut right down that seam right there like I did on the very first one, and I was going to take all this part right here and everything in the floor and just move it up whatever it is I needed, which I don't know what that measurement is yet. Now that I have found out exactly where Ford put the two pieces together at and welded them, that is not what I'm going to do as far as where I'm going to cut. I'm still going to cut the inside of the bed, but now I'm thinking I'll cut down here at this very low seam that goes around the very bottom, and I'll just raise this part of the floor up however tall I need to do. So that's the plan. Now as far as the floor, this part here that I'm fixing to cut out, I'm not going to use a Sawzall wheel in order to cut all this out. I cared how this edge looks here because it's the outside of the truck, and I wanted to make sure that this edge was nice and smooth and super straight line, because I wanted to make sure that this married up with this whenever I got ready to re-weld it all back together, and then that way it'd look really nice and clean. Grind this back down a little bit, put a little Bondo on it, and you won't even tell that it was ever a long bed. As far as in here, I don't really care I do care, but I don't care that I have super straight lines. So, because it's inside of the bed, it's got a lot of dings and dents in it already, and I'm probably going to rhino line it or do a bed liner of some sort that paints on that kind of has a grippy feel to it. And so, with that being said, I'm going to use a plasma cutter in order to cut this section out right here. Alright guys, so as you've seen in the video, I had to use a Sawzall in order to get these little brackets that are where it seams are at, where they hang down a little bit. You got 4 of them, 1 in each corner of the bed right there, and then where the corrugated area starts right there. So I had to use Sawzall in order to get that cut through. Plasma wouldn't cut it. So, but here's our lines. They don't look too terribly bad. I think it'll still be pretty easy to weld those together. We have that cut off. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And as always, if you have questions, comments, leave them down below. Until next time, be safe. Thanks for watching.